Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of the Defiant Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ruthie, and I know I said that I was done with ideology and purpose and values, but I realized that in order to really do a series properly, I could not let this go without recommending one of my favorite business books to you. So, in today's episode, I'm going to tell you why, if you haven't already, you should read or listen to Simon Sinek's Start with Why. And I know that video's gone around on Facebook and YouTube and the other channels, and him, talking, and everybody's like, whoa, this is like mind blowing. What are we going to do? But really, take some time and read the book or listen to it. He narrates it himself, which is kind of cool, I think. That's exactly how I want to do all of the books that I plan on writing, if I can actually finish them one day. But yeah, so, Simon Sinek's Start with Why is a book that kind of goes into like a great way to, once you've gotten your ideology, your purpose, your values, you kind of got those things set, how you can apply that to your actual marketing strategy. So I had the luck of reading this book before I set up my new website. And that was when Defy the Status Quo was born, because I read his book and I just really started thinking about what I wanted my company's purpose to be. And again, kind of tying it back to what are our values, even if people stop writing, what are our company values that would allow us to move forward? And it's there in the name. It's in Defy the Status Quo. And it's about marketing and it's about content, but it's not necessarily about written content. And that holds true to my vision of the future and what it is that I want to provide for my clients. But I digress. So start with why kind of moves into the next step. Like I said, after discovering your ideology and your purpose, and you're kind of getting those things, you're like, whoa, my mind's blown. I know exactly why my company exists. And he talks about how communicating your values and purpose can set various companies apart. And it's about how they use their values and the things that they consider valuable, how they use that in their marketing messaging to resonate with their target audience. And so I think that's the key there, because in last episode, I did say, like, it's not a differentiating factor. It's not something you necessarily, like, you don't do it for marketing purposes. But once you've done it, you are probably way more clear on the types of clients or customers that you want to attract, right? So you want to make sure that you can infuse your marketing messaging with this information, because your values and your purpose, those are the things that you're going to be passionate about. And your marketing should always have passion, and that's key, I think, really, for a lot of B2B service industries. They're like, oh, I'm boring. Nobody is interested in this stuff. And that's where, people start to think, oh, well, my clients don't expect content from me. They just want awesome accounting services or awesome financial services or whatever. And the problem with that thinking is that your clients do want content from you. All clients and customers want content. It's the age that we're in now. But it's how you present that content, because you're right. They don't want boring content. So if that's what you're going to put out, then yes, they don't want that. But if you can liven it up, if you can make it apply to them, if you can speak to them in their language and really help your content resonate with them, then they want it. And that is where your ideology, your purpose, your values, your passion comes into play. So I will be honest about the book and say that it seems he has a bit of a love affair with Apple. He talks about them a lot, and I get it. I know that they are a great company, ideal for something like branding. I mean, their consumers, their users, their customers are evangelists for the brands. I see the lines, coming out of the Apple stores in the mall. I see it. I know. But he talks about Apple a lot in this book. And I'm like, okay, well, what about Nike? Or what about those people who only wear Under Armour? Or like the fight between, I guess it kind of goes back to Apple, but the fight between, Apple Watch and every other watch. Or let me think, the people who love Linux, right? Linux users, if you're a Linux user, here's your little spotlight right now. There are people who will die by Linux. So he could have talked about, I think, a lot of other brands, but I felt like he kind of harped incessantly on Apple. And so I got a little bored at that part. Every time he started mentioning, I was just like, yes, I know. Apple, the bite out of the apple, it was great. But what about other companies? So if I was giving him feedback on the book, that's what I would say. I would love to see other company case studies in that book. So if you love Apple, then that'll be great for you. Because he talks about them a lot. I am not an Apple person, as you might have been able to tell. Not that I hate Apple. I have Google everything, and I have an Android phone, and that's just the way that it is. But as a result of his repetitive mentions of Apple, the book does get repetitive. And I still think it's worth a read, though, even if you only get halfway through. If you're planning an ideology discovery exercise with your C-suite, your chief marketing officer, your chief technology officer, your financial officer, the executive officer, all those, chief officers. If you are planning an ideology exercise with your C-suite and they need to know why this is important, then you might suggest that they read Simon Sinek's Start with Why and his take on what makes an enduring company that withstands the technological advancements, that withstands, consumer trends, and consumers can be fickle, so I would recommend that they read that book perhaps before you start the exercise, just to give everybody some perspective on why something like this is important. Okay, so now I promise that this actually concludes the series on ideology and purpose and values and why those things are just critical to your company's future. All right, so that's been an episode of the Defiant Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ruthie, and I will see you next time.